Bali's once pristine beaches buried under plastic bottles and fast food wrappers, while jet engines move overhead, melting ice caps far away, coral reefs die, fish vanish, and local fishermen watch their livelihoods destroyed. The opposition wants a world where we jet off for selfies, leaving paradise in shambles and our planet burning. Good afternoon, House at Large. The motion today is this House believes that tourism brings more harm than good. I'm the first speaker and I'll do a few things in my speech today. One, set up this debate with our models and stakeholders. Two, give you our burdens. And three, arguments and then close. What is the setup of this debate? Our definition of tourism. Tourism is travel for holidays, sightseeing, or leisure. Places gain jobs and money but suffer pollution, overcrowding, and price hikes for locals. What is the outcome that we stand for? Thriving destinations that sustain themselves without tourism's destruction. This plays out globally, from Bali's crowded shores to Venice's sinking streets, where short-term visitor cash creates permanent environmental scars. Stakeholders of this debate are the local communities, and in our world they breathe clean air and keep affordable homes. Ecosystems recover from overuse, governments save billions in disaster cleanup, and ethical travelers enjoy uncrowded beauty. Our consensus of this debate: tourism creates some income, but we prove that environmental devastation and our other arguments outweighs this permanently. So our team will prove to you two things today. One, tourism delivers more harm than good, and two, sustainable alternatives outperform it. To do this, we have three arguments. We will show you how 1. Tourism ravages the environment through emissions and overconsumption. 2. Over-tourism reduces quality of life. And 3. Tourism harms local communities and cultures. My second speaker will cover the second and third argument, and I'll jump straight into the first argument, where we will show you how tourism's environmental disaster. Our claim here is that tourism devastates the environment through skyrocketing carbon emissions from flights and overconsumption of resources. Tourists guzzle 5 times more water than locals from hotels, pools, and showers. This overconsumption depletes forests for souvenirs and food imports while locals compete for literal scraps. Countries like Costa Rica built ecosystems with sustainable parks, drawing smart tourists at first. But mass crowds soon overwhelm the place. Trash is piled up, trails are eroded, and fragile habitats got destroyed, proving tourism always escalates destruction, ruining both the economy and the environment. Why is this impact so important? Irreversible tipping point hit. Dead reefs mean no fish for generations. Floods displace millions like in Venice. Global warming spirals over. No economy survives ecosystems. Ecosystems collapse. Jobs vanish when nature dies. Opposition's world is endless flights, and it chokes Bali and other places with smog and floods. Overconsumption leaves locals thirsty amid tourist booths. Proposition's world is when flights slash emissions by so much. Reefs regenerate, water stays for communities, and Earth literally breathes again. Choose a living planet over a touristy vacation, and for those reasons, I'm proud to propose. Thank you.
I'm the leader of opposition we believe that tourism actually brought more goods than harm. Tourism is when people travel to other places for holidays, sightseeing, or leisure. Many places depend on tourism for jobs and income, but they can also suffer from problems like pollution, overcrowding, and higher prices for local. First, I'll give you what the goods and bads of the tourism are. First, goods. It's the fastest, you could give you a very fast economic growth. And on a political protest, it actually makes the people on living their voice bigger, and it makes infrastructures that are critical near. Bad things are it pollutes the nature itself, and prices of the items increase, overcrowds and overcrowding. Our burden is that how even though they are not with other cultures and not accepting tourism income, will help them to be exceptional in terms of development in their country. But first, I'll refute to the government's argument. They said that there is a lot of environmental damage to them. But that's true. But thinking about other alternatives, you in like Brazil, is only a these to to get economical growth is the fact that you have to burn your natural resources like coal, oil, and sell them. But this could actually cause more environmental damage than tourism, which only contaminates one single location, and you could clean that up. Moving on to my argument. My first argument is that tourist income helps to development in country's economy. When tourism happens, there's a massive increase in the rate of tourist income, and so therefore it helps the country's
Bye.
economy. No, thank you. Our mechanisms are as follows. First, it creates a variety of jobs. Tourism provides employment for many people: hotels, restaurants, tour guides, transport workers, souvenir sellers, etc. This reduces unemployment and improves living standards, especially in developing countries. Second, it
Bye.
increases national income. Yes.
How do you cover up for the economic damage and environmental destruction on your side if you continue pouring in with tourists?
So more, although there's less economic, environmental damage could be could be restored, and the alternatives for economic growth are worse. You have to burn fossil fuels, and you have to cut trees like in Brazil. They for farmers to farm, they cut the trees that gets the carbon off from carbon dioxide, cleaning the air. But farmers are just cutting those trees for just farmland. So my second mechanism is that it increases national income. Tourists spend money on accommodation, food, transport, activities, etc. This brings to a foreign exchange to the country, which boosts GDP and strengthens the economy. And third, and I mean second, if a lot of foreign people come, then the government will gain money, and the government will be able to use money to develop places such as the army, healthcare, poverty, etc. Third, it develops infrastructure. To attract tourists, governments invest in better roads, airports, public transport, healthcare, and communication systems. Local people also benefit from these information. Responding to the POI more clearly, because we take the trade-off of having more tourist income can be used in many ways. If a lot of foreign people come, then the government will gain money, and then we will be use the money to, and we could use that money to clean up the environment better. Fourth, it supports local businesses and communities. Tourism encourages the growth of small and medium businesses such as local markets, handicrafts, and cultural services. This helps spread income with the community rather than these large companies in the large. And moving on to my impacts, the infrastructure. My first impact is infrastructure. The government made hundreds and thousands of infrastructure near the tourism just for them, and they're now
That's
if
fine.
they okay, wait. So, and my comparative government is suggesting that just for the environmental hazards, that they're firing all the local people working there for profit, and we're trashing that land. Thank you.
One. Good morning to the House at large. The motion before us today is this House believes that tourism brings more harm than good, and might even I firmly support this motion. First panel starting with some rebuttals. So, firstly, they say tourism creates money, and while it does, most of it doesn't stay with the local residents. Large hotel chains, airlines, and tour companies take most of the share, leaving locals with low paying seasonal jobs. And even if locals earn something, it's unstable and disappears during crises like pandemics or natural disasters. The impact of this is that so called economic benefits are fragile and don't outweigh the long term damage to housing, infrastructure, and local livelihoods that tourism brings. Opposition also claims that tourism encourages development and modernization, but development for tourists doesn't equal development for locals. Roads, facilities, and services are upgraded to serve visitors, not residents. So, panel, while cities may look modernized, locals often face higher living costs and reduced access to public spaces. The impact of this is that the so called modernization is actually displacement, turning communities into tourist zones instead of improving residents' lives. And lastly, they say tourism creates job opportunities. As I've said, one sec, I'll take it later. And while tourism does produce work, but most of it is low paying, seasonal, unstable. Hotels, restaurants, and tour companies may hire locals, but the big profits just go to corporations and foreign investors. Locals often end up with temporary or part time work that disappears during crises. So while tourism may look like it's providing jobs, it doesn't give residents long term security or meaningful livelihoods. In reality, it just creates economic dependence, vulnerability. One sec, I said I'll take it after this, rather than real lasting benefits. Yeah, okay, I'll take your POI now.
Okay, so our first speaker mentioned in his mechanization, literally his first mechanization, that it's creating jobs because tourism provides employment for many people, because hotels, restaurants, and those things, it's especially developing the countries. I think you're completely ignoring his first mechanism. How do you respond to this?
I've literally said in my rebuttal, these jobs aren't actual jobs. They're low paying, seasonal, and unstable. So these aren't benefiting the locals in any way because it doesn't give them long term security or meaningful livelihoods that can support their family. Okay, and I think you were ignoring my rebuttal. So, panel, I hope you got that part of my rebuttal. Okay, now onto my arguments. I'll cover two. One, over tourism reduces quality of life for locals, and two, tourism harms local communities and cultures. Starting with my first argument, over tourism makes everyday life so much worse for local residents by overcrowding cities and stretching the basic services beyond capacity. When a destination receives more tourists than it can realistically handle, infrastructure that's meant for locals begins to fail. Public transport becomes overcrowded, roads are constantly congested with traffic, and essential resources like water, sanitation, and healthcare are overused constantly. Governments often prioritize tourist comfort because tourism brings quick revenue, even if that means neglecting residents who live there year round. Housing is also heavily affected as landlords convert homes into short term rentals for higher profits, driving up rent and forcing locals out of their own communities. Over time, cities stop being designed around residents and instead revolve entirely around tourist demand. We can see this in cities like Venice and Barcelona. Residents deal with constant crowds, noise, traffic, and unaffordable housing. The long term impact of this is that cities become unlivable for the people who call it home. When locals lose access to housing, public space, and basic services, tourism causes much more harm than good. Moving on to my second argument. Tourism damages local communities and cultures by turning traditions into products and pushing locals out of their own spaces. To attract tourists, cultural practices are often simplified, exaggerated, or altered to be more entertaining. This shifts culture from something meaningful and lived into to something performed and on demand. Tourism driven development also reshapes local economies, replacing community businesses with souvenir shops, luxury resorts, and international chains. As a result, profits flow to corporations rather than locals, and communities lose control over how their culture and space are used. To conclude, this debate shows us that tourism does not simply bring benefits without costs and makes it unlivable for locals, and development erodes and tourism-driven development erodes communities and cultures. With that, so proud to propose.
I'm the second speaker of opposition, and before I get into my argument, I would like to refute to proposition second speaker. So proposition second speaker said that tourism harms the environment. Yes, we agree that that tourism might harm the environment, but environmental damage from tourism is localized and preventable with policies like visitor caps, eco-friendly accommodations, and compensation fees. Tourism can fund environmental protection actually, such as park fees fund wildlife reserves, reforestation, and conservation programs. They also said that like these working at restaurants are not a real job. They're working, isn't that an actual job? We clearly mentioned how it benefits because it creates jobs. Tourism provides employment for many people: hotels, restaurants, tour guides, transport workers, souvenir sellers, etc. This reduces unemployment and improves living standards, especially in developing countries, attracting foreign people to the country. So lastly, they said that tourism leads to overcrowding and overpopulation in tourist areas. Yes, we agree that this is a huge problem, but overcrowding is manageable through regulations such as visitor limits, timed entry, and sustainable infrastructure. The benefits, jobs, incomes, cultural preservation far outweigh temporary crowding issues, which are a logistical challenge, not a reason to eliminate tourism. So now I'll move on to my argument. So my argument is about cultural exchange and understanding. The premise is that tourism fosters meaningful cultural exchange and understanding, allowing communities to share traditions and visitors to gain first-hand knowledge of local customs. This mutual engagement strengthens social cohesion, prevents cultural heritage, and reduces stereotypes, producing net benefits that outweigh potential harms from tourism. So my first meg is about direct interaction and immersive experience. Tourism allows first-hand engagement with culture, such as participating in local festivals, attending traditional ceremonies, joining workshops, or staying in homestays. This provides a richer understanding than books, videos, or online media because visitors witness customs in context and experience social norms directly. Locals and my second meg is about economic incentives for cultural preservation. So, tourism generates direct revenue for cultural sites, museums, galleries, and traditional festivals, giving communities the financial means to maintain or revive cultural practices that may be at risk of disappearing due to moderation of urban migration. Local artisans, performers, musicians, and cultural practitioners receive income from tourists, purchasing handicrafts, paying for guided experience, or attending performances. This links to economic sustainability, to cultural continuity, ensuring that heritage is not only preserved but also practically viable as a livelihood. My third and last make is about global exposure and soft diplomacy. So this means that tourist interest draws international media attention, social media sharing, travel documentaries, and online platforms, which can help educate a global audience about local culture and history, also while bringing more tourists to that underdeveloped country. This exposure raises the profile of local traditions, attracts funding, and encourages global cultural dialogue, enhancing understanding across borders. So why does this matter? So the impact is, my first impact is about how it reduces stereotypes and promotes tolerance. First-hand cultural experience allows visitors to see beyond surface-level assumptions about a community, breaking down preconceived notions or stereotypes. By interacting directly with locals, participating in festivals, or observing traditional practices, tourists gain empathy and nuanced understanding, which reduces prejudice and promotes respect for different ways of life. My second impact is about how it preserves cultural heritage. So tourism provides both attention and financial resources for cultural sites, traditional arts, and heritage events that might otherwise lack support. Museum festivals and traditional purposes, as I've said again, often rely on tourism revenue to survive, giving communities a practical incentive to maintain or revive traditions. And my third and last myth is about how it strengthens local identity and social cohesion. So communities that host tourists gain pride in their culture when traditionals are appreciated and valued on a global scale. This pride strengthens local identity, encouraging participation in cultural preservation and intergenerational transmissions of traditions. So and the comparative, why did prop lose? Props claim harms, environmental damage, overcrowding, and commodification are localized and manageable with sustainable tourism policies and tourism long-term benefits, preserving culture, reducing stereotypes, fostering understanding, and supporting local economies far outweigh these harms. What do op win? We win. We take this debate home because tourism delivers measurable social, cultural, and economic benefits. It preserves heritage, strengthens communities, reduces prejudice, and supports local livelihoods. And that is why I am so proud to oppose. Thank you for listening to my speech.
Three things in my speech today: one, rebuttal, and some rebuilding; two, clashes, and three, the comparison between both worlds. First, let's begin with some rebuttals. My dear opponents, you keep stressing on the point that tourism creates job opportunities. However, what you fail to realize is that not all jobs are equal. Many tourism jobs are low paid, temporary, and controlled by large hotel chains or foreign companies, meaning that the community sees little real benefit. These jobs often lack stability, career growth, or long term security, leaving locals dependent on unpredictable visitor numbers. Please note this point. I think all of my speakers have refuted this. And the second speaker claims that tourism funds environmental protection and helps the environment. But panel, that assumes that the money actually reaches the people or places that need it, and it rarely does. Most revenue goes to big hotels, airlines, and tour operators, not local communities or conservation efforts. Even when some money is allocated, it often comes too little and comes too late, like damage in coral reefs, deforestation, or crowded cities cannot awfully or easily be paid off. Relying on tourism to fund the environment ignores the fact that tourism is a cause of these large problems in the first place. You can't solve a city's pollution or a fragile ecosystem's collapse by feeding the same system that destroyed it in the first place. Now, moving on to my clash analysis. There are two main clashes in this debate today. One, what approach better secures the long term well being of local communities and environments? And two, what approach creates sustainable economic opportunity and stability over time? Starting with the first clash, what approach better secures the long term well being of local communities and environments? In the opposition's world, they believe that tourism builds cultural exchange, economic opportunity, and global awareness, and ultimately benefits long term communities. However, what they fail to realize is that these benefits are often short-term and come at serious long-term costs. When tourism is prioritized, local communities face overcrowding, rising living costs, environmental degradation, and the erosion of cultural identity. Natural spaces are overused, polluted, and commercialized, while residents are pushed out to accommodate visitors. This means that while the opposition sees tourism as enrichment, it frequently compromises the very environments and communities it claims to uplift. In the modern world, long-term well-being cannot be built on systems that exhaust local resources and disrupt daily life. Now, let's look at our world. We believe that limiting tourism protects communities and environments by prioritizing sustainability over profit. By reducing tourist pressure, local ecosystems are given time to recover, infrastructure can serve residents first, and cultural practices can exist without being turned into commodities. Our world values long-term health, sustainability, and dignity for the local populations rather than short-term visitor satisfaction. Hence, we win this clash because while the opposition focuses on immediate gains and surface-level benefits, the proposition secures lasting well-being for both local communities and the environment that they depend on. Now, onto my second clash. What approach creates sustainable economic opportunity and sustainability over time? In the opposition's world, they believe that tourism builds large amounts of money into local communities and therefore creates a lot of economic stability. However, what they fail to realize is that most of the money generated by tourism does not actually benefit these local communities in question. A significant portion of tourism spending goes into international hotel chains, airlines, travel companies, and foreign investors rather than staying with the local people. Governments also spend huge amount of money building airports, resorts, and tourist infrastructure that serve the visitors, not the residents. This means that while tourism appears profitable on the surface, the wealth leaks out of the local economy, leaving communities with little long-term gain. Now let's look at our world. We believe that redirecting resources away from tourism allows money to be invested directly into local development. Instead of spending billions on attracting and accommodating tourists, government can invest in education, healthcare, housing, and local industries can benefit the citizens first. With that, I rest my case, but not my stance. Thank you.
Judge, currently the government side is strawmanning us, saying that the only benefit and impact we have does not exist, which is job opportunities. First, the impact does exist, but secondly, even though we bite the bullet and say that it is true that it does not exist, we have other benefits that are exclusive to our side. So going straight into refutations, Prop keeps saying that we're only focusing on job opportunities. Jeff, if you had listened to our LO speech, you would know that we have talked about many more benefits coming from the LO. Judge, please consider this as proposition side strawmanning us, saying that tourism policies, rules, job opportunities, social media, etc., a short term. What, like, I don't really get what proposition side is meaning. Judge, they're saying that these jobs are permanent, but how? It's not true because more tourists will come every single day, or like minimum every single month, providing more and more jobs to help the tourists around the country. Does it every day, also gaining tips for the job for the people, right? So it's actually a long-term thing. Also, this helps the tourists, making their experience much more enjoyable. Judge, proposition, please consider that proposition is keep on saying the same thing, that no thank you, that tourism, and it's also not, it's protected time, that tourism income is not helping. They also saying that working at a restaurant is not a real job. Clearly mentioned how this benefits because it creates more jobs. Tourism provides employment for many people. Hotels, restaurants, tour guides, transportation workers, souvenir sales, etc. This reduces unemployment and improves living standards, especially in developing countries, attracting foreign people to be in the country. So bad to propose. So going straight into the first most important clash in this debate is that which side better achieves country growth. Government side that says that they better achieve country growth because opposition is side is causing environmental damages, causing floods, worsens global warming because we're going through overconsumption, over tourism. While we agree that this is true, global warming is already a big problem. There's so many other reasons why climate change and global warming has been growing and worsening. Nuclear bombs, electricity use, fossil fuels factories, and so much more means that when you try to reduce the amount of tourism, that doesn't mean that climate change is going to worsen or will lessen or stop. While as an opposite side clearly proves that infrastructure is going to benefit because the government side is making infrastructures around the tourist attractions because it's and all the tourist income is not being wasted. And the second impact being coming from our LO speaker saying that tourist income can be used in many ways. Not a lot of because a lot of foreign people come, then the government will gain money, and at the end of the day, the government will be able to use the money to develop places such as the army, healthcare, poverty, to improve poverty, etc. So at the end of the day, as our LO speaker stated, it supports the local businesses and communities because tourism encourages the growth of small and medium businesses such as local markets, handcrafts, and etc. And also encourages the investment in economical diversification because this helps the country diversify in the economy instead of relying on only one agriculture, making the country more stable and resilient. So at the end of the day, because both sides do goods and harms, it's which side impacts the growth more. So as previously said in the clash, tourist income can be used in many ways. On government sides, they suggest that tourist income is bringing too much harm to the country because as in opposite side saying that there's a large as B say that there's a large benefit in the economy because their social growth is like a lot. It's based in tourism. Furthermore, their investment is going to go to the country just for tourism, and this is why it's helping the country's development. So we opposition side obviously takes over the first clash. Going into the second clash, most vulnerable thing is which actually helps the future think about the long term impacts. Government side is saying that the environmental damage can't get more severe. The tourism is getting more harm, so we should stop it. Again, this is only one part of the country's development. As we mentioned, we take the trade off if it is really crucial for this. One environmental impact for a bunch of other developments in the opposition side, we think it's worth it. But now the alternative, what if we just say that tourism income can cure these damages? This is a way for more beneficial things instead of saying one benefit is only a part of one country. Most of the country does not benefit to local. They also mention how opposite side is saying that it's not benefiting the local people and support. Sure, now what? We're still benefiting the whole country. And also, as our second speaker mentioned, we are strengthening local identity and social cohesion because the community hosts like pride through their culture. Now on the opposite side, we actually proved this right because we're giving culture exchange, as Adela mentioned, and the economical benefits coming from LO, but furthermore, escalating to benefits from the country because the money, worst case, the money is at least they're going like really short and they're putting their country on risk, right? So as we explained, no, like not one, not two, but we have five exclusive benefits coming from the LO and the DLO speakers. So at the end of the day, we're not helping only the local citizens, but also the tourists with education at the end of the day. So making more people wanting to come to the country is actually like doing better. So because both sides do goods and harms, like at the end of the day, because opposition side wins over first clashes, so proud to oppose. Thank you.
Opposition completely won this round, but government side is keep on saying that they won this round. And Judge, I'll explain the reason why the opposition took this round. The government is keep on saying that tourism is destroying the environment. But this is true. What if you don't take tourism there? What could you put there else? Factories that emits that has amazing amount drastic amount of CO2 emissions. Companies, but there's what about trucks moving out and on and out there that emits which has a high amount of CO2 emission. This actually destroys more environments. This is actually worse. And if you and what about making infrastructures for factories? You destroying the whole land and cutting trees for a whole factory that that has a high amount of CO2 emission that destroys fish, aqua life, marine life, and emission CO2 choking the local people there. What, Judge? I want to ask you, what's better? Local people having a little bit of problem with a little bit of loudness and a little bit of plastic floating in the ocean, but ponds. But you could clean that. But what about factories cutting the whole tree? What those trees coming back? It will take at least 100 to 200 years to come back and do its full capacity. So this tourism is actually more reversible, and government side is keep on saying that this proposition focuses on environmental damage, on overcrowding, cultural commodification. These issues, as mentioned multiple times, are manageable through sustainable policies, regulation, and responsible practices. In contrast, tourism fosters cultural preservation, social cohesion, and international understanding. And immersive experiences through festivals, homestays, and local crafts could make your cultures famous, and the whole world can all remember you as and even if you're a minority, could know that you at the past you are a giant, big, 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 not a minority. Thank you.
This debate boils down to a fundamental question. Are we judging tourism by how profitable it looks on paper or by how it actually affects the people who live there every day? Opposition presents tourism as automatically good. More visitors means more money, more jobs, and more opportunity. But that ignores who actually pays the price. Locals deal with overcrowding, rising rent, noise, and cities redesigned for tourists rather than residents. Panel, our stance is clear. We say tourism does more harm than good. But just to clarify, not that we want to stop it or ban it altogether, because that's not what this debate is about. Moving on, they claim that tourism improves the quality of life. If that were true, we wouldn't see protests in places like Venice or Barcelona. Over tourism makes daily life harder. Public transport is packed, housing is converted into short term rentals, and basic services like water, sanitation, and healthcare are overstretched. Cities stop being places to live and become products to sell. Opposition also says tourism preserves culture, but turning traditions into entertainment is not preservation. Culture is simplified and staged for tourists, while locals are pushed out of their own communities. The result is cultural erosion, loss of identity, and resentment. Now let's analyze the clash. On quality of life, our side clearly wins panel. We show concrete harm that affects locals every day. Unaffordable housing, strained public services, and overcrowding. Opposition talks about money, but money does not fix these problems for the people who live there. On communities and culture, opposition offers surface level benefits, but we show long term damage. When traditions are commodified and communities displaced, the harm lasts far longer than any short term gains. Panel, tourism may bring revenue, but it often prioritizes profit over people, and the damage lasts long after tourists leave. For all these reasons, so proud to propose. Thank you.